This year, I'm landing in Las Vegas again on business, and once again, I'm taking the opportunity to immerse myself in the beauty of American landscape by renting a car from Sarah via the Turo app, a solution that worked perfectly last year. This material is a short preview of what I managed to see during those 5 days of wandering among the red rocks of Sedona, a place that was recommended to me by Casey, whom I met during last year's travels. The trailer and few episodes of which can be found among the materials on my channel. Casey and I had dinner planned for this first day of travel, so I quickly checked 2 places off my list before reaching Cottonwood, which I almost didn't due to unforeseen circumstances that delayed my departure from Vegas by 2 hours. Luckily, I arrived almost on time. We spent a few pleasant hours, and for the night, Casey invited me to her property, where I had her huge, by European standards, trailer for my disposal. I start the next day with classic jet lag, so I wake up at dawn, take a few shots of the area, and go to my planned first activity, the Arizona Fiber Festival. Yes, during this trip I decided to learn something new, and I chose handcraft. This is how I spent most of the first day, so there is not much time left for off-road activities, but I still managed to overcome the demanding Granda Whoosh road, not wanting to drive to my first destination on a regular road. This trail turned out to be a lot of fun and was a preview of what I could experience later. Interesting trails with beautiful views. The next day was merry-go-round. Not a spectacular sunrise because it was behind the clouds, but with spectacular views. It was a cold night in the car, the spot was tight, but the road was impassable, so I couldn't find a better one. This early morning was a perfect time for first scenic walk during this trip. I continue my journey shortly after 9. There's a partial solar eclipse that day, and I want to welcome at the Cathedral Rock area, so with less than 2 hours away from the even and very bumpy road, I set off without much delay, but I can't help but capture the surrounding spectacular rock formations that cut off with fiery red from the vivid green of the nature around. For some, the phenomenon of an eclipse is a spiritual experience. For me, it was interesting in terms of the possibility of capturing it, and it was a seminal moment for my equipment. The place itself is famous for strong energy sources called vortexes that are said to be felt the most strongly right next to the creek flowing next to this rock formation. And the name itself gives this whole scene a certain sacredness, so I spent a while in the area. Thank you very much. Heading north, I crossed some secret gates, not accessible to everyone, which significantly saved me time, and heading to a place called Shaman's Cave or Robber's Roost Cave, more about which in the full episode from this trip, I came across a demanding trail crossing the desert wasteland. The trail was very rocky and I had to be very careful not to damage the bronco on those bumps, but the views and that sense of isolation that I love were excellent. The cave I was heading to is located in the heart of the Coconino National Forest, in this isolated pink sandstone dome. Reaching it is a bit of a challenge and you can get lost as you wade through the dense dwarf vegetation, but if you find yourself on this exposed path that runs along the almost vertical face of the rock formation, you're on the right trail. I planned to spend the night in the immediate vicinity of the cave, so I put the car with the front wheels on the stones to level the rig and be able to sleep normally at night, without constantly sliding down, but it was terribly windy that evening and I finally had to look for a place to stay somewhere in the lowlands. Another frosty morning, I greet another sunrise. To another morning toilet with another small bottle of water and have breakfast, which always tastes delicious in such conditions. And after waiting for the sun to rise a little higher, I move on. This time, I plan to visit Palatki heritage site, but I arrive too early. I'm there an hour ahead of time, so I don't wait until it opens because my schedule is tight, so I just look at the area from a bird's eye view, admiring the majestic formations towering over the plateau. Next on the list is Subway Cave. To reach it, you must prepare for a walk along the bottom of Boynton Canyon. The trail is over a 6 miles long round trip, but considering the challenges you'll face once you're there, be prepared to hike for several hours. There are two ways to get to the cave. Both are quite demanding, and one of them may end up with getting a bowel attack at place, which, considering the exposures, is a really good adrenaline pump. The cave itself is, in my opinion, worth the effort needed to reach it, although it also requires a lot of patience, so more on that in the full episode from this trip. This type of traveling makes you wake up with the rising sun, which has many charms. The world looks magical, and suddenly it turns out that the day can be really long. Some people also take advantage of the morning's rising currents, and like in some places in Turkey that I visited in the summer of 23, they look at the waking world from the basket of a balloon. For me, it's an opportunity to lazily experience the awakening surroundings and get on the trail earlier. Sometimes it is an outlaw trail. Heading to Birthing Cave, I stopped again for a moment near the formation, which resembles a large submarine with something like an altar. I must admit that the shapes of the local rock formations can be surprising. Birthing Cave required some walking and patience again. From the entrance of the cave, you can turn around and look out for sweeping views of the red rocks of Sedona, but it's hard to have a clean shot there. My last point of interest was Vultee Arch. I started the trail from Road 89A, and it was quite challenging in terms of ups and downs to overcome in a relatively short distance. Vultee Arch turned out to be a great nerve testing point as well, and I learned something new about myself again. Reaching it required balancing on rather unsafe slopes, and holding the drone's controller in your hand at the same time did not help at all, and was a rather irresponsible idea. DJI introduced the function of blocking all manipulators of the controller with the drone is flying in tracking mode, so that the controller can be placed in the bag without disturbing the recording. Nevertheless, the effort to get to the bridge itself was worth the struggle, and the experience was amazing. The last day, that was meant to be purely a transit day back to Vegas, turned out to be a bit challenging at times thanks to a slight deviation from the route. The vast wilderness of the Garland Prairie was saturated with water from the recent snowmelt, and the relatively easy trail presented occasional minor challenges for the Bronco. Fortunately, apart from the traces of crossing through these wet areas, I did not encounter any obstacles that would pose a challenge that would stop me. So after a few hours, I reached Williams, washed the car, and set off my way back to Vegas.